Got a reminder by Facebook. So, 2 years ago, I went for the autism diagnosis. And back then I did not have exempt. So I had to be inventive, travel in the restaurant, where there was, back then, mask-free zone. And it was extra stressful to just find a way how to travel from one place to another without having any exempt. So that's how I traveled, in a restaurant. Mask-free zone. At least back then it was. That was right at the beginning of this insanity. And I knew right away, with all my dad had experienced, having Soviet trauma, as they call it. I can highly recommend this book, Beyond Invisible Walls. It helped me understand the PTSD my dad actually had, undiagnosed. But still it was very present when he got triggered from the communist era. He knew what totalitarianism was, and of course he told me about it. And I knew right away, as soon as the government decides what everybody has to do, completely ignoring one's individual needs, then I knew, okay, something is very wrong here. But anyway, I had to find my own solutions to get around it, because I fucking can't wear a mask. I just can't. It triggers PTSD from having been traumatized from the relationship and the autistic sensory sensitivity. I cannot tolerate heat in the face. It just doesn't work for me, no matter what. I tried it, and it stressed me out insanely. It triggered a fight response, so that's not useful to anybody. And therefore I knew I had to get a mask exempt from any doctor who was willing to give it. So anyway, that's how I traveled from one city to the next to get my autism diagnosis under these circumstances. On top of everything, it was summer, and I actually hate summer. I really don't like it, because my body has difficulty dealing with heat of any kind. That's just something that cannot be changed. And I also don't like to have my body uncovered, like running around in a t-shirt. I always wear long pants, and if I can help it, long-sleeved shirts. But obviously if it's too hot, even I have to comply. right? But anyway, that's just the autistic trait. And many autistics have an issue with summer heat, or the opposite with winter cold. In my case, I hate summer, I love winter. And degrees of 18 below, that's where I feel most comfortable. Celsius, not Fahrenheit. And anything above 22 degrees Celsius, I'm just not myself, really. So, if ever I would move to another place, it needs to be rather cold. So, all these hot places anywhere in the world, I just don't go there. So, I digress. So, let's move on. This is me after that ordeal, dealing with a psychologist who really made so many mistakes, could not put it in her head that autism and PTSD can coexist. I don't know. She was highly manipulative. She made so many mistakes in the report afterwards, and I had to repeatedly send emails to her saying, this is not represented the correct way, this didn't happen the way you put it. And at some point I just gave up. So in my report it still says she ran 2-mile marathons. I mean, I told her I ran 2-mile races and marathons. Completely different thing. 2-mile marathons, that doesn't exist. 2 miles, that's a very fast pace. Very fast. And for marathons, the pace is different unless you are a Kenyan runner. Then the pace is the same. But I am not, obviously. So my pace in marathons is way slower, and the fastest I had was 4:14 for a marathon. And 2-mile race, my record was something 12 minutes or so. So, yeah, very different pace. Anyway, but that is still in the report falsely. And then you have experts. They read that report, right? So that's why I wanted to have things correctly represented. So it was a big frustration with this psychologist. She was so arrogant, telling me to my face that I was not the expert, she was the expert, and therefore I would not recognize when she said some stuff, and therefore since I didn't get triggered from a question she asked, therefore I had no PTSD. I mean, this is so stupid. You will get triggered from stuff that reminds you of your previous trauma, be it smells, sounds, people, the way they behave, places, whatever, but not somebody asking a random question that does not remind you. That can be like Russian roulette. So, and to this day, I'm so upset that people who call themselves autism experts still are not educated on trauma. and PTSD, especially in Switzerland. It makes me so angry that this is completely disregarded and just shoved under the rug, ignored, dismissed. So then you have no ways of saying what you're experiencing when it's both autism and PTSD. It's just ignored. Which brings me to the next thing, why I'm making this video today. So, this was shared on a very well-known autism site. And this autism expert is from Australia and she works mainly with kids. And it is okay to see autism from this positive side, right? That's okay. But yes, still she shared this. And when I look at it, it describes the same thing. Feeling stressed. Those are signs of stress, but they call it autistic burnout. Why do you have to always separate autism from a normal human reaction? We all have a nervous system, regardless if we are autistic or not. We all have a nervous system that reacts to stress. Let's compare that. This is the infographic from a trauma-related perspective, and it's the same. Feeling anxious, angry, out of control, overwhelmed. But they take those symptoms and put it in the autistic burnout stuff. Separate symptoms. To me, that's like reinventing the wheel, but putting another label on it. So here, when you are in the free state, the hypo arousal, then again, you are spacey, zoned out, numb, frozen, your body wants to shut down. But they point out, very important thing, it's not something you choose. These reactions just take over. Same thing here. These reactions just take over. So, if an autistic reacts with anger, that's the same thing. That's the fight response. Being in survival mode. And when an autistic is in the window of tolerance, same thing. You feel like you can deal with whatever's happening in your life. You might feel stress or pressure, but it doesn't bother you too much. You can deal with it. But the only difference, I would say, is that autistics will react to stressors way quicker because their nervous system is more sensitive to the environment. Their amygdala will get triggered, not just from fire, but from smoke and even water vapor. And the alarm goes off. And you are either in the fight, flight, or the freeze, shutdown. Same thing. Just quicker. And here is where the red healer comes in. Again, what saved me in all this time? Since last December, tolerating stress. and dealing with anxiety. It was the traveling by hat. The safest way of traveling. Such a blessing to having become aware by this. So, thank you, dear friend. You know who you are. Again, not just for this, but for so much else. And what does it do when you travel by hat? Again, you take a back seat. That anxiety is tuned down and you can at least operate and walk through a stressful situation without getting re-traumatized. And at the same time, it will also heal old trauma. So you might no longer get triggered by anything that reminds you of the old trauma. It's just amazing using the travel hat on a daily basis to be able to operate in difficult situations. And you feel its guidance. And you reconnect to the universe. And you become able to actually listen and hear what is being said. It's always there, but you need to be able to hear it actually. And then choose the right path. It helped me get through it.